Oh my god, it is December. My favorite time of year is Christmas. Traditions, shopping.
Crowds, consumerism, family fights, relatives.
Come on, people out with a purpose. Warm fires, roasted chestnuts, turkey.
Need to find a place to go hang myself.
Come on, you just need a holiday book.
Sure.
Let's see, there's gonna be a Christmas YA book. There aren't too many, but there was that Let It Snow anthology. Ooh. This one is about the Nutcracker.
There's no way this could go wrong. I feel like Christmas with my family.
Downloaded. I'll let you know how it goes.
So yeah, that just happened.
I just, where was that Nutcracker in that book? There was no Nutcracker in that book. I don't even know why they bothered to mention it. That was not an adaptation.
Okay, forget about false advertising. I'm not going to be able to go to the museum again.
Without thinking about...
Don't say it, don't say it.
Agalmatophilia?
What?
Statue sex.
God damn it!
The plot is nothing like the Nutcracker. Sure, a few elements of the ballet were borrowed. Rats, a godfather, a cursed prince, and a fairyland, but that's about as far as the similarities go. And those are pretty much just elements of any fantasy stories, not just stuff from the Nutcracker. Yes, after I read the back of the book, it does say inspired by the Nutcracker, but they really didn't need to mention the Nutcracker at all.
Our story begins in New York, supposedly. There are no details about the actual city given to us other than the city is New York. Fill in the blanks. What time period? Feels like the 1920s with mob bosses and crime syndicates, but their manners and clothing style suggest that it might be the 1820s.
It would have made a lot more sense if she said the story took place in a city like New York. It would have given her a lot more license rather than just leaving us point blank confused.
The one thing we do know is that it's Christmas time, and Clara is stuck being a pawn for the crime syndicate Concordia, that her father the mayor is a part of. Except that Concordia isn't really happy with her father because after Clara's mother was brutally murdered, he's been a mess and has been threatening to out them and leave them.
Clara is being forced to marry Dr. Victor, a stereotypical but nasty man who likes to rip apart little girls in his orphanage. On top of that, Clara has discovered that Concordia is planning to have her father assassinated at the end of the week. Clara is stuck. Even though her godfather has taught her to fight, she feels weak and pathetic. And everything is all her fault.
It's Class A victim blaming, and while it's pretty clear that it's done to give her character room to grow and develop, the problem is it's pretty clear it's been done to give her character room to grow and develop. It doesn't feel natural, and it comes across as whiny and pathetic.
The rule for complaining is that you have to make one good attempt to change your situation before you get to whine. Or at least that is the rule in my head that makes it okay and doesn't get on my last nerve.
Well, her life's not all that bad. I mean, she has her godfather, Drosselmeyer, a friend of her mother's who's a toy maker who taught her how to fight.
And she has her statue. Yeah, the statue that she pretends is her boyfriend and touches and kisses and rubs up against. The statue that makes her feel like no man has ever made her feel before.
It must be really awkward to go to the museum.
Yeah.
So the word for being attracted to statues is agalmatophobia.
Yep.
And this is the first instance that we've come across it in YA.
Yep.
Okay. Anyway, things aren't exactly what they seem, and Drosselmeyer comes to Clara for help on Christmas Eve. It turns out that he's from a secret fairy world, and the statue, a statue, not a nutcracker, is a cursed prince. Drosselmeyer has finally figured out how to uncurse the prince, so of course that means the person who cursed the prince doesn't want him to be set free and has set a horde of rats to kill them.
That fails, obviously, and the prince, Nicholas, is set free. He comes out of his stone prison naked, but I'm pretty sure that the statue did more to get Clara's motor running than naked Nicholas did. And for reasons that were never quite clear, her father gets kidnapped, taken through a portal into fairyland. This is supposed to force Clara to follow, as Concordia would like to assassinate him in a week, and she needs to get him back just for that occasion. Otherwise, she and her sister will be
Clara is naturally confused with all these new changes as her world is being thrown upside down with rats, statues, and portals.
Oh my.
But does anyone explain anything to her? Nope. Drosselmeyer keeps putting her off as he's busy trying to resuscitate Nicholas. And even after she gets to the fairy world, no one wants to explain anything to her. We are treated to 3 whole chapters of what's going on. It goes past the point where any normal human being would have stopped asking the question because the sound of their own voice on repeat would have driven them insane.
And when we finally do get answers, we've already been in the fairy world a very long time.
And the fairy world isn't really what you come to expect of the fairy world. It's full of iron. The ruling queen, Anise, gets all of her power from these little mechanics. Fairies are decked out in stuff. Metal limbs, metal eyes, metal God knows what, in a filthy, dirty, gross world. And this is where one of my major problems starts. Number 1, I think the phrase fairy world is a major misnomer.
Why? Because the place has all the ambience of Hell's Landfill?
No, but that could be my second reason. The main reason is because fairies cannot come in contact with iron. Iron is supposed to burn them. It's rule number 1 with fairies.
You keep using the word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
So she keeps saying fairies, but what she means is elves.
Yes.
But you have to admit, as little world building as she puts into New York City, she puts a ton into the fairy world. She sets out to make it the creepiest, grossest place you've ever heard of, and you know what? She pretty much succeeds. You come out feeling grimy.
Nobody is really happy with this world Anise has created. Sure, the fairies are now the ruling power, but they're stuck in this mechanical lifestyle that I'm not really sure anyone wanted. And the humans are wretched, subjugated creatures who are all addicted to sugar.
Ah, sugar plum fairies.
Sugar is like an addictive drug with marijuana-ish effects, which once you've taken it, you can't really stop. Clara seems to get around this in a barely explained way, but the rest of the population is addicted.
And with these biomechanical implants and these drugs, it's pretty much turning into a Fantasyland Repo the Genetic Opera.
Zydrate comes in a little glass vial.
A little glass vial? A little glass vial.
And the little glass vial goes into the gun like a battery. And the Zydrate gun goes somewhere against your anatomy. And when the gun goes off, it sparks and you're ready for surgery.
As for characters, this is where the story gets a little shaky. Clara is trying to find herself, and she starts from the bottom. She's kind of whiny and pathetic, but she ends up a fairly strong character. But to describe her, the only word I can think of is okay, and that's just how I have to sum her up.
Nicholas is also pretty bland. I mean, human Nicholas is a lot more interesting than statue Nicholas. He has a lot of hatred and prejudice that he has to work through, and that does add some depth to his character. He doesn't always make the right decision, but it almost feels like you could remove him from the narrative and the story could go on without him. Almost.
And we actually get the villainess Anise's perspective, and that's probably the most interesting part of the whole book. She isn't crazy exactly, and the story hints majorly at the fact that there is a chance for her to be redeemed. And regardless of what happens, no spoilers, you kind of want her to be redeemed. And that's really weird for me because I love to hate villains.
This book is hard to rate on a scale because for everything that's positive, there's something negative. Yes, the atmosphere is well done, but the story felt like it could use a few more edits. Some characters are decent, but other characters were blah. The action scenes were good, but it takes about half the book to get to the good action scenes. And character development does feel forced at times, but the thing is, it is still there.
This story is different, and it's good in some ways, and it's awkward in other ways, but it's trying something new. And even though it's not an adaptation per se, it's nice to see people drawing on new stories.
Is this book a must-read? Meh. But it is an interesting one.
And you learn a few things.
No.
Agalmatophilia.
La 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 la.
Happy holidays.